Hey there, folks. I'm Isaac, and I just moved in from the big city to inherit my grandfather's farm.
Okay. And I'm Claire, and I'm the top videographer on Harv's Island.
And this is Make
Make
That
that game
Game!
where we pitch the latest
The greatest
new video game ideas.
that aren't ever gonna get made. Hey, Claire, I
Yeah.
have a video game to pitch for you today.
Oh wow, that's so weird because that's like exactly what I was going to ask you to do.
Wow. Yeah, no, we're in tune with things. We're getting
Okay.
it done. Um, so this game is titled Golden Delicious.
It's going to be Apple based.
It's going to be Apple based indeed. It is a first person apple picking
Oh
game
my god.
where you have to harvest as many apples as you possibly can to sate the desires of a dark apple god and save the world.
Oh, so the stakes are pretty high, like much
Yeah.
higher than I thought this was going to be like a chill
Oh, absolutely not. This is not a chill. No, one of the things that this game intends to capture fully is panic, dread, a breakneck pace. You are constantly shoveling as many apples as you can into whatever receptacles you can find to haul it back to the altars of this apple god. You're pushing people out of the way, stealing apples from their hands and baskets, like just grabbing baskets away from them, and just never stop moving because if you do not sate this apple god, the world ends. A
Okay.
full Ragnapple rock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you come up with that one ahead of time?
No, that I just came up with that one on the spot, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, Ragnapple Rock. That is
Okay.
actually the new title, Ragnapple Rock.
Well,
Golden Delicious was a working title, but now this is a real game called Ragnapple Rock.
I wonder if that's like a trademark infringement, or if because you put the apple in the middle, you're like all good.
No, it's fine. Yeah, there's a couple games called Ragnarok, Ragnarok Online, God of War, Ragnarok.
Well,
So
they probably have to pay for that, or I guess Ragnarok. That's just a
Ragnarok's
place.
like a mythological thing. It
Yeah.
would be
So
like
never mind. So yeah, you can. I was just thinking because of Thor, but it's like no, that's because he's a Norse god, just like anything else.
So this game is a constant rush to. I think I already said it, but you've got to collect more and more apples in less and less time. There's no way for you to actually win in this game. There is only you can only do the best. So there's an online leaderboard, and you're competing to get the most apples to this apple god. You do things like so. You get into a little bit of Grand Theft Auto. You can steal like carts, tractors, 18 wheelers, helicopters, boats, like whatever you can get apples into, you can steal. And that's a big part of it. Like you just have to run up to an 18 wheeler, like rip the guy out, and then like drive it through an apple orchard, fill it up as fast as you can, and drive it into the altar. Um, if you get pumpkin spice lattes and ciders, they give you or apple ciders, they give you the energy that you need to keep going. Like they'll give you a speed boost
This
for
is
a
the
period of time.
question. Sorry, this is an unrelated question, but can there be ciders that are not apple?
I think so, right? Is does cider mean apple? Cider is apparently a women's clothing brand.
Oh yeah, it's one of those fast fashion Shein.
Oh, cider is in fact an alcoholic beverage made from the fermented juices of apples. So yes, it must be apple if it is cider. Okay. All right. Well,
I was just
anyways.
curious.
So that's basically the mechanics is you are in first person running around collecting power-ups to move faster and you're just picking up apples. In my head this works best as VR
Okay.
because it gives you the tactile of like being able to like bodily shove people out of the way like with your little VR grips
Definitely
and
thought you
like
were going to say the
actually
tactile of like picking apples.
That's the secondary part of it, but I really want to be able to push people out of the way in like full VR experience. I want it to be a lot like visually I want it to be like Untitled Goose Game or Scusi or whatever that game
Oh, that's
from
interesting because
AGTQ was called.
I was picturing it like way more realistic, like more like play game, like rat game.
Oh, there's two graphic modes. There's the intense, dark, grimdark mode, and there's the fun
Mm-hmm.
Dark Apple God
Ragnar
Ragnapple
Apple.
game.
I don't know. Ragnar Apple also is now.
We just keep changing it.
Ragnar Apple might be my favorite.
So I want to jump into some specific design elements that I want this game to have that really drive home like the goals of the game. So because I want the player to be under panic, sort of like I want the player to like feel the rush of needing to collect many apples. So it will never tell you how many apples you actually have. So you'll never know. You'll have a basket full, and unless you actually kept track of all the apples that you shoveled in there, or like how many apples you were able to fit into an 18 wheeler, you don't actually know how many apples you have. You also will never know exactly how many apples you need at any particular junction in the game. Like at first, you give one apple to the altar, and the god is sated, but then it demands more, and then you have to get like, do you get three? Do you get a five? Do you get a bushel, a
Oh
half
no,
bushel,
this
a
feels like a
peck?
quest from Evermore, the theme park.
Yeah. Shout out to Jenny Nicholson's Evermore theme park video that she just released the other day that we've
Yeah.
been watching. It's 4 hours, folks. It's great.
Yeah, so we're making it through.
Yeah. But so yeah, you are never told how many apples you actually have. You are never told how many apples you need. You will just be told if you've brought enough apples for this certain junction in time. Now you ask, how do I know how much time I have? Well, it also doesn't tell you that. What happens is the sky gets redder and redder as the god gets angrier and angrier. So, it starts off as a nice blue sky, and then as it reddens, you're like, oh no, he's getting angry. I have to get back with the apples.
So I think those mechanics make me not want to play anymore. I don't think I think having some things a mystery, like the sky thing, like if you have like one of those three variables not known is fine, but all three not known, it's like, well, what's the point of playing the game if I don't know my objectives? And I could lose at any
Well,
point.
you know your objectives.
Yeah,
Your
but
objectives are to bring apples to the
so if I
altars.
don't know how many that I need and I can't count them, or like there's no counter system, then like I could work really hard and do a really good job and I could still fail and I wouldn't even know why I failed. So like that would bother me. That would frustrate me pretty quickly.
Well, no, it would still indicate to you. It would depend like if you brought like an 18 wheeler load of apples and the god wasn't satiated, and then you didn't have enough time to collect enough more, then you'd know like you failed because you ran out of time because you didn't collect enough.
Right, but like enough is such a vague term that it's like I would never be able to I would never know if I'm going to succeed. So what's the
And that
point
is
of
the
playing?
that's sort of the point is I'm trying to impress this feeling of dread and panic into the player using the game mechanics. And in this case it's as simple as it's not really even the mechanics, it's actually just the UI is how
Well,
this feeling is being imparted to the player.
yeah, I just think you need at least one known variable or else it just would be too frustrating. The sky thing I think you need to keep. That's very cool for the timing. And that I think implies a lot of dread. Like if you know you need like 5,000 apples and the sky starts to darken and you have 10, then like that's a feeling of dread, right? But like if you don't know how many you need, you might just go with those 10. And then they're going to be like that's not enough and you're like, "Okay."
So now this leads into like the final like core design impact is that the altars that you need to deliver the map to. So this is a fairly big map that eventually gets you to the point of like stealing helicopters and like shipping boats and stuff. But no matter where you are in the map, there is always a alter an altar within a relatively short distance. Like no matter where you are, if you know where the closest altar is, the most you have to run is, let's say, 30 seconds or a minute. So you always know that there is an altar nearby. You just need to actually discover the altar first. So like you have a mini map that, or you have a map that you can pull up that shows all the discovered altars. They start off undiscovered, but you find them, and now okay, when I'm in the northeastern island orchard that I stole the ferry boat to get to, there is an altar on that island. I don't have to take the boat all the way back to the mainland to like the main altar or anything. There's plenty of these things scattered all throughout, so that you never lose purely because you have gone too far away. Yeah, I kind of anticipate with this kind of game that you'd have the hardcore types who see the leaderboard and are like, I must get on it. And then you'd have the people who would play it
So is
once and
it
be like, that was
multiplayer?
cute. It's not multiplayer, it's just got an online leaderboard.
Oh, okay.
So like your score, like how many apples you returned and how long you lived, or how long you kept the world safe, get posted to an online leaderboard. So when you first load it up, you see like the best players. So like when you inevitably fail, because there is no winning this game, your score comes up and it says you survived 25 minutes, you brought 65,000 apples. And then it shows you where you fall in line with like the rest of the global people who have uploaded scores. And you might see, oh, I'm number 2 because number 1 survived 26 minutes and returned 70,000 apples. And then
So
you know
I like the game a lot. That's why I'm being particular, because I don't like that. I think not knowing how many the god needs, but knowing how many you have would solve the problem, because then you're like, next time I'll try 1,000 more or whatever. Like I don't know. Just for me as a player, let us know. Email us in the comments.
yeah,
How do
let
you
us
feel
know where
about
you
it?
fall. I'll post a poll when we release this
Great.
episode.
Because I
Is what
just feel
I'll
like
do.
I need to know at least one of the variables, and I don't think I need to know time. I like the sky method, and I
Mhm.
think I don't think I necessarily need to know how many they need, because that also does add stress. You're just going to try to get as many as possible, but I think I need to know how many I have. I think that's my theory in this game.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll put it up to a poll. We'll let the listeners
Yeah.
decide. Um But yeah, that's what I wanted to go over for Golden Delicious / Ragnapple /
Ragnar
Ragnarapple.
Apple. Ragnar Apple. It's gotta be.
All right, Claire. Well, that was my game. Do you have a game to pitch to our beloved audience this
I
week?
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't.
Oh,
But
oh no.
I do have a question
Oh,
for Claire asked the question.
okay.
That's related to this. So I just had, I don't know, I thought about it a lot this week, my game pitch, like usual, or
Okay.
and usually something will come to me, but nothing did. And I just feel like I wanted to ask you, because you always have some pretty interesting games. How do you come up with a
Ragnarapple.
game idea? That's the question.
So okay. A lot of the time, so I have a couple different ways of doing it. I either am playing a game and I focus on one specific mechanic within that game, and then I think like, hey, what if I built an entire game like off of this? I can't remember the last time I've used an idea like that on the podcast,
Wasn't
but
it
like
like
there's
the
a
ice
couple.
game?
Yeah, well, the ice game
That one stands out.
actually, the ice game came to me because I guess it is sort of that, and I expanded it to like all the different ice level mechanics that I hate, because or that people I assume people besides me hate these ice mechanics. I forget what game I was playing at the time, but there was like a slippery slidey part. Oh wait, I think it was Subnautica because of the cold. And then I was like, what if every game just hated you as much as the cold
Hmm.
does? So I guess one way is hyper focus on one element and then like expand around that. A second way is I'm like doing an activity and I say, how do I make this like a video game? How do I make this a wacky, silly video game? So apple picking was apple picking the other week. And I was like, hey, let's make that a video game. Let's make that something.
I guess a lot of the time it just feels like that's boring or already done. Like it's hard for me to get it. Like it's like embroidery, the video game. I would never play that. No one would play that. Or like I don't know. Like I couldn't come up. Like if I came up with apple picking the video game, just be like pick apples. Yeah, you know, like you took it to an interesting place. So I guess it's like how do you add those elements or like know that your idea is a good idea.
Uh, I don't always know that I don't always know that my ideas are good ideas. I think I've had some stinkers, some real floppers, and I think his like I can't think of any specific examples, but there's a couple where I've done this where I've taken an activity and then called it a game where I feel I've completely missed the mark of making like an interesting game like you're talking about. Um, where I have basically just described, oh, you're going to do the activity but in a video game, which is a
Right.
niche that people do. So there's like Gundam building simulator, like model building simulator, where like you have to it's a real game. You clip parts off of a sprue and like you glue them together and stuff. And it's literally just I'm doing the activity but in a video game. There's like Power
Yeah.
Wash Simulator. I'm doing the activity of power washing but in a video game. There's a niche for that, but you have to pick specific activities that kind of have something going for them where like the VR experience of picking apples is certainly something, but it's like a one-time experience. It's like something that you would do in the middle of a city for the novelty of it. Like the void setup that Jenny Nicholson was talking about. That would be an interesting thing. Oh, pick apples in the city, but you don't have to drive out to to the rural area. You can do it in some warehouse near the docks.
Oh my gosh, and they should give you get like an apple, like a bag of apples at the end. Like they've like shifted like apples.
Yeah, and like they like pin them to like constructed trees that they've mapped into the game
Oh,
world.
no, I was thinking you would like pick virtual apples, but then at the end they'd be like, "Here's your apples that you
Oh,
picked."
that could work too. Yeah. Uh well, actually yeah, because they would have to actually map the apples into the game, which would require like little sensors and whatever on them.
So they can't be
So
real apples.
yeah, you would at best be able to have like rubber balls with them on it, so that they would actually be able to interact with the hand. But yeah, completely virtual, and at the end they go, "Oh, you've picked a bushel. Here you go." But yeah, the other way that I do it is I rapid fire around myself.
I so
Um,
okay, I could do that and generate some random stuff and come up with something, but then I feel like that's cheating because we have to do that live on the podcast. Am I using like I don't know. I feel bad
so I
about
don't
doing that.
actually randomly generate words. I just come up with like words myself, and
Oh.
because of the latent biases of the human brain, it generally tends to like come out to a theme. So like I'm just if I was to do this right now, I look around my room. I have a bird above my camera, I have a cat on my monitor, and I have the gnome behind me. So now I'm like, okay, bird, cat, gnome. This is a game about you are a sorceress living in the woods. You have animal familiars that it's like a Pokemon battle game. Where you collect familiars and send them out to do tasks, and they collect resources in the woods for you. Game idea.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I don't know. I feel I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like that feels too random because part of I don't want to waste the random, you know? But I guess
that's
that's okay.
fair. That's if you've got a limited random stock. Actually, the fourth way that I just thought of that I sometimes do is I do take an existing video game and I don't focus in on one mechanic at all. I take a video game and then I think of a mechanic to add.
Mhm.
So like um Link's Awakening, because you mentioned Link's Awakening was like the last game that you were like super hype about, or one of the last games. There was Turnip Boy too, but like, okay, Link's Awakening, but instead of what's a mechanic that you could add that would like change the core gameplay of Link's Awakening just enough?
You can fly.
uh yeah, well,
I don't know.
let's say that it's Link's Awakening, but the like gameplay style, but your character inherently has the ability to act as if like Link with the flying rooster. So like the more you press the A button, the like you pick like your character can just like float around constantly. And then how does that change the design of the game? Like you can't have early areas have like little holes for you to jump over to block them off until you get the item to let you progress there. You would just a lot more areas would be open. You would have to design areas to be closed off in a more interesting way, like tall trees or something that you couldn't fly over, or the pits are too hard for you to fly over, or too hard for you to navigate. Maybe as you play the game, you get more maneuverable. So, like, maybe at the first, you can only fly directly forward. And then as you, like, progress in the game, you learn how to control yourself and change direction in flight and different limiting things like that. So
Yeah.
there's a new core game there with a kind of simple change.
Yeah,
So
no, that's something I never thought to do. So,
yeah,
okay.
and like we just demonstrated live on air, it actually is like it's not just like I sit there and I am like, okay, time to come up with a game idea. Close my eyes. Game idea summoned. Like Shabira from Great British Baking Show. If nobody if somebody out there doesn't watch that, the latest season in one of the early episodes has a contestant who is like trying to think of what a pastry that they're not super familiar with like looks like or something, and
Yeah,
she
because
just
it's,
closes her eyes
and
and
then
then is
suddenly
like,
opens them and is like, I've got it. And then
and
just moved on. And it was like, what?
as somebody who like has aphantasia, basically, not diagnosed, but like I know that I can't summon pictures in my brain. It was the most mind blowing thing to me in the world. I was like, people can do that. Like I
Well,
can't even
and I
like
had to tell him
picture.
that that's not how most people, I think, because I can see images in my head, but it's, I don't like summon them. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
like, come to me, a pastry level of baked. Got
there's
it. Like,
another poll. It's not game related, but
no,
like
but
maybe I
like,
just make that poll. I'm like, can you summon images in your brain? Can you do that?
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so that was interesting. Yeah, I think that gives me a lot of new tools to create game ideas. So, because usually it
Yeah,
literally was just like something happened that week, and I would be like, that could be a game, you know? And so now I have three other ways to do it.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's, our. That was a surprise question. So we can still see it if Isaac wants to ask a question for Isaac asks a question.
I do have a question.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. All right. So, this is going to be like a role playing question. Play a role here. All right.
Okay.
You've just been put in charge of your favorite game series. You're making the next
Oh,
entry
God.
in the
I
series.
don't want to.
As the designer,
That's so
right?
scary. Okay.
How different are you do you feel you are required to make it the game from the previous series entries in the series that you would yourself like enjoy playing it? All right, so
Whew,
some
okay.
game series are like, all right, we are basically identical. We have done some slight changes, like, oh, we've got a new graphical thing. Like the levels and story are different, but the gameplay itself is like basically the same as the last time you played this. And maybe we've added like a new subsystem, like crafting or something. Pokemon introduces new Pokemon, and they often try to introduce like a new mechanic that often, and I know listener Megana probably has opinions on this too, often feel a little hacked on.
Oh, she does.
Um,
She has a PowerPoint on this. So,
I know, but Yeah, how different are you going to make the next game in this series? Are
This
you
is
going to
tough.
just plop down the previous game and change the dressing, or are you
Okay.
going to go whole hog and like redesign everything from scratch,
So I just
or
need to
middle ground?
I just want to like clarify like what series is versus like updates, right? Cuz like Link's Awakening, so the Link series would be like Link's Awakening, it would be like Breath of the
Breath of the
Wild,
Wild,
the
Link
one
to the
with
Past.
yeah, all the okay. So that's the series and then like you can
Yes.
revamp those games, but like you're not talking about that. You're talking about
No.
like progression. So
Like
the
a
Link
new entry entirely.
yeah,
So let's say you're put in charge of Legend of Zelda. You're making
the next.
a
And
Legend of
Legends of
Zelda.
Zelda, I feel like does do very different games, like across the board.
Sometimes, yeah. Breath of the Wild, huge departure from previous games. Kirby to Kirby Forgotten World, big departure from earlier
Was
games in the
it?
series.
I feel like it wasn't.
Well, I mean, think about Star Allies versus
Yeah,
like
I
you've
think.
completely changed. It's gone from a 2D game to a 3D game.
Yeah, but other than that, it's not that different. That's just the
Okay,
dressing, right? Like really.
I would say that that's a lot more than just the dressing
I don't think so.
because
The 3D part, it's only visual. It doesn't really impact gameplay.
in Forgotten Land,
Yeah,
uh, but
like you can explore
so being able
more.
to like run circles around enemies versus an enemy is in front of you and your choices are to fight through it or jump over it.
I mean, jumping over it to me is the same as running around. Like it's like a flavor. It's I don't know. To me, it's not a
Okay,
big
that's
difference.
interesting.
It's not a
That
big
is
difference.
interesting. See, this is why we have this podcast
Yeah,
because we have completely different ideas on game design.
yeah.
And another potential poll subject. Wow.
I think for me it's like start out like Kirby Forgotten Lands. What it added that changed it more was a little richer story and a little more challenge. Like it's harder. It's harder to play.
Okay.
Um, in a good way. So anyway, but the making it 3D to me is just like that's like icing. That's so cool. That's fun, but it's not the cake. It's not the
So
main
I have
event.
I have a question within a question
Oh
for you.
no, I didn't even get to answer the first question
No,
yet.
no, yeah. This is going to be a small diversion.
Did you see me real quick? I those on YouTube just saw me. I was literally going to adjust my glasses that aren't on my face. So just wanted to point that out to the crowd.
Amazing.
Anyway, continue.
Okay, so you've played Super Mario?
Yeah.
Okay. Is Super Mario and Link's Awakening, would you say that the gameplay like is just dressing between the two
No, they're
because
completely different.
okay.
They're completely
Okay.
different. Because
Mm,
Super Mario, you travel through different like worlds and like complete tasks within that world. Whereas Link's Awakening is an open world game for the most part. The only things that are not available to you are things that you can't physically access because you haven't achieved certain goals. So like you're talking to people, you're meeting NPCs, you're entering dungeons and you're exploring an open world. Whereas in Super Mario Brothers, yes, you can go back and forth between levels, but it's not really open world. There's no dialogue, there's no overarching really. I mean, there is a story, I guess, but it's like very buried under gameplay. Like it's more about playing the game and less about the story.
okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Well, moving
you're,
on.
you're just like we have different brains. Anyway.
Yeah.
But to your first question, so thinking of it that way, I would say I want it to be I would do a more of a light update because I'm going to link this to TV and I've told you this before. I don't like when TV series surprise me. Like I hate it. With the exception of a musical episode, because we can always have a musical episode. I will not be mad
Okay.
about that. Although some are definitely better than others. But for the most part, I really hate when a TV show drastically diverges from its formula. So whether that's they're going to make it, oh, it's a like silent episode now, or oh, like we're going to follow a different character's point of view for just like one episode, or, you know, like something like that, where it's like we had a formula about how this TV show worked. And now, for some reason, today we just decided, screw it. And sometimes the episodes can be really good, like artistically, but like I'm there. I come to a TV series because I know what to expect. And I don't think I'm alone in that. It's like I'm here because it gives me some comfort to know what to expect about how the show is set up. And when they throw it off, it's like I didn't get what I paid for almost. It's like no, so it's like I don't want to shift a game so much that it doesn't like it should follow the same formula. Like I mean Super Mario Brothers is a good example where like it hasn't really changed at all. I don't think. In the iterations that I've played, it's very, very similar to each other, but it can look different. It can have new elements. It can have new powers, but it's gonna be the game you signed up for. It's gonna be traveling through pipes. It's gonna be having different levels in a like world. It's gonna be jumping on things, getting
Okay.
coins. You know what does that make sense? Like I would stick
Yes.
as much to the previous thing as possible. Well, also add it's like the story will be different. So like we're rescuing a different, princess, or we're on a new planet like Forgotten Lands, right? Like that's good. But yeah. Like even Kirby, I mean I will say like the Kirby Star Allies is like really hard to get into because I didn't play I didn't play any Kirby games that happened before it.
Yep.
So it's like
So so
I don't know
Forgotten
these
Land
people.
became your baseline.
Right. And then like Star Allies is hard because I don't know the allies. I have never met these people before. I'm like, who are you? I don't know who you are. So that's hard. So like that is almost too much of a departure. But I'm gonna have to play more games and I'm excited for Dreamland.
Oh yeah, yeah, that comes out soon, right?
Yeah, it does. I don't remember when. I can look it up real quick while you respond to my
Okay.
thoughts.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've said it enough, but I am very surprised that you don't see Forgotten Land as a large departure from previous Kirby entries just on the core thing.
You swallow a power, you get the power. That's Kirby. I don't know.
I guess, but that's not the only element of it, you know? Like the 3D plane of movement compared to the 2D plane of movement, I feel is a massive change up.
I don't know.
Left, right, and jump is the only way that you can interact with the environment
Which
or like you
kind?
can
I mean,
move.
is is the little that stick that different from left, right, up, down? Like, no, it's not.
I mean, okay, all right.
And I would say
So,
a lot of the Kirby game, even though it's 3D, is like set up on a plane. Like it is not really open world. You can't just go anywhere. There's like 2 levels where you can do that, and other than that, it's very much like again, it feels more like dressing, like special, fancy, nice dressing, but it's still like the core gameplay is still the same to me.
I delineate. I think the difference is I delineate the core, like the gameplay more granularly,
I don't
and
know.
like it seems like you bunch it up to move, jump, suck, whereas like I
we need we need merch. We need merch with Kirby on it, and it says "Move Jump."
I think having Kirby on it would be difficult due to licensing, but if we just had a shirt that says
it's
move,
it's
jump, suck,
we can
or
make like a
even it's like the Jim Bro shirt where it's like move and jump and suck.
and there's like a maybe we can make it like Kirby colored. So like if you know, you know.
Oh, if you know, you know. There we go. Perfect. Yes. Move, jump, suck. New tagline. That's going to be our first merch. We're going to figure that out. But anyways, okay, my
Anyway.
answer to the question. I I don't like when TV shows diverge, but I do like when games diverge. I don't so I get bored by games easily. I'm finding in my old age. If a game does not diverge enough from the game before it, I to some level feel like I've just paid $40 to $60 to play the game that I already had, with different like story or whatever. And like story does not carry a game completely for me. I can't really play through a game purely for for the story if I'm just doing the same thing that I did for the previous 80 hours of the previous game, if that makes sense. So, um, the Final Fantasy series diverges mostly in story. As of late, the latest entries in this series that I've played have diverged gameplay a little bit, but not significantly. It's weird. I have a huge gap in knowledge of Final Fantasy games. Like, I played 1 through 6, and those are somewhat the same. I think starting with 4 or so, they went from pure turn-based combat to an active time battle, which was a big enough change, and it actually did bring some interest into it. So instead of like I tell fighter to attack, white mage to heal, thief to attack, and monk to attack or whatever, and then based on the speed of each character, they carry out those actions. Uh, Based on your speed, a little bar fills up, and when your bar fills up, you can give that character a command to attack. So, like, if your thief is way faster than the fighter, your thief's bar fills up faster and might be able to attack twice. I think that's an interesting mix-up to the gameplay. Changes things significantly. All right, let me play this 100-hour game over again, although it's not the same game anymore. So that's what gets me. Whereas if they are just like if they released Pokemon Red every year for 12 years, I would only have bought Pokemon Red. Uh, Gold and Silver, the only thing that they added was items, and like thinking back, if I wasn't an 8-year-old at that time, if I was like my current self, I'd be like,
Uh-huh.
okay, cool, my Pokemon can automatically eat berries when they get hurt. What an interesting change up. And then even with the modern games, like the things that they add, I talked about are like kind of weird, almost hacked on gimmicks. So like one game let you mega evolve your Pokemon, and then that was never really used again in future games. And all that did was like, oh, you can pick one Pokemon into the battle to take a turn to mega evolve, and then they become like a different type, have a different ability, have better stats. Interesting, but like that's not really changing up the core gameplay enough. It gives me a strategical decision in battle because you can only mega evolve one Pokemon, so you have to choose which one that you're going to mega evolve and like the relative strengths and weaknesses of the mega evolve form. And then the next game was like, here's Z moves, here's a special super powerful move that you can use, and it's like, okay, that's still the core gameplay hasn't changed at all. I can just every once in a while use a super powerful attack, and then it's just planning on when to use that attack in the battle.
Hmm.
And I actually don't know what the upcoming game's special
It's that the
gimmick is.
I thought it was that the Pokemon can change types.
So I think you're talking about the form system,
I don't know.
which
No,
they've
no,
had for
no,
the last couple
no.
games.
Meganna said it's new. Let me pull up what she said. Meganna knows. Meganna's a Pokemon
Okay.
professor. Actually, so fun fact about guest Meganna, in film school, I filmed. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I filmed her. Uh, she pretended to be a Pokemon professor because for my editing class, we had to film an interview, and it could be anything. So I was like, I'm interviewing a Pokemon professor, and like she took it so seriously. She wore her lab coat. It is
Good.
just like
Perfect.
great. It was so good. And people really liked it in my class. They thought it was hilarious. So like it was good. So Meghana says the expert. No, we're talking about Animal Crossing. Meghana and I just text about video games. Okay, yeah, the new gimmick of this generation is Terra Stylizing. Terra Stylizing, where the Pokemon can actually change types, is what she said. That's all I got.
Oh, interesting. Terra type, dual type becomes single type upon Terra stylizing. The move Terra Blast changes. Okay, this seems crazy. This might be a big change. All
Oh
right.
boy.
I'm gonna look into that, and I might have to eat my words. This might be a big change to the series. This might not just be a hacked on gimmick, or maybe they might not keep it going forward in games because they tend to go back to the core formula and then add one new thing. But all right, we'll see.
I think I think we just have different brains when it comes to video
Yeah.
games. Whereas I think part of it too is me getting frustrated that like I just learned how to do this, right? Like it's like I just learned how this works and now you're going to tell me it
Mm.
works completely differently. Or like if I start on this new Pokemon game and the terrealization or whatever is like a really big game change, but I learn how to do that because it's the game I'm playing and then I go back in time and I want to play an older game and that doesn't have that and it has something else and it's completely different, then I'm going to feel lost and frustrated and I don't want to play it. It's
But
like,
you will still have the core game to
yeah,
fall back on. The Pokemon battle,
I
like
guess.
fire types will still beat grass types will still beat water
But
types. Once you
Link,
learn that,
I guess. But Link's Awakening is a good example where like that game I freaking loved it.
hmm
I don't think I could play a lot of the other Zelda games. Like they are like completely different and more involved and like it just I don't know. I think I like Breath of the Wild looks cool, and I know there's like a huge fan base and people love it, but it looks so much more complicated and like too open world and like
hmm
like I want another Zelda game that looks like Link's Awakening, but it's a different story. Like that's what I want. That's what I want.
we'll talk offline,
Okay.
but Link's Awakening has two indirect slash maybe direct sequels.
Yeah, so I should play those. But that's the thing. Is like I don't know. I would want the whole series to be similar enough that I can still play it, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
and yeah, and these sequels are actually good examples of what we're talking about. Is they take the same core gameplay. One of them is called Oracle of Seasons. The mechanic there is you get an item where you can change seasons. You can jump on stumps, lift the item up, and it changes the season. And
Oh, I
depending
think I
on the
saw someone do a
season,
speed run of this.
yes, we saw it at AGDQ or SGDQ one those years. And yeah, so like in winter there might be a snow pile that's tall enough for or that's blocks your way, but in spring it's melted. And in fall there might be like a tree has withered and all the leaves have fallen off and that reveal like the leaves might cover up
Hmm.
pits that you can then walk over and like that kind of thing. So it's the same core gameplay of
Yeah,
go dungeon, collect item,
right.
etc., but it adds a
Walk
puzzle solving
around.
element. Yes, walk around,
Yeah.
adds a puzzle solving element to the outside
See
areas
that to
where it's
me, that sounds perfect. That sounds like the perfect update to a game.
boom. And then the other one I haven't played much. I don't know what it is, but it's you go between the past and the present of an area.
Oh yeah,
So
so it's very similar to Seasons. It sounds like. Wait, isn't that
yeah,
one? Isn't
yeah.
that one? Isn't that one first person? Not.
No, no.
Oh.
So Legend of Zelda loves the time element. So Ocarina of Time
Oh, okay.
has that where you go
That's
from
what I
like
was thinking
yourself
of.
as a child
Yep.
to yourself as an adult.
Yep.
This is you go like the world. Well, I guess the world changes in that one too.
No, but
But
I
yeah,
see.
they
Yeah.
reuse that same core mechanic
Okay.
effectively. Whereas in the
Okay.
in the past, like a building might be under construction, and in the future, it's built.
I think part of it too is I'm bougie and I'm a video game baby, and if it doesn't look like Polly Pocket, I don't want to play. Like
Fair, that's legitimate. Like, hey, Link's Awakening, the remake looks
it
beautiful.
looks
The
so
Oracle of
good, and
Seasons and Ages have not been remade
because I
yet, so
think
they're
you brought up
pixels.
Oracle of Seasons with for me, and I think that's why I haven't played it is because I'm like, oh, but it's old.
It's ugly.
It's ugly. And like I really want to play I wanted to play Majora's Mask, but then I watched the speedrun and I'm like, oh, this game is ugly. This game is so ugly.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's aged well.
It would make me throw up.
All right. Well, anyways, moving on. Hey,
For
let's
the
hit the
nausea, because of
rapid
the way.
fire
Yeah.
round.
Okay. All right. Let us know. Let us know. Answer our poll or write in the comments or, send us an email. What do you think? What's the best way to update a game series? What's the next series for you? All right.
Familiar, unfamiliar, somewhere in between.
Well, it's time to move on to the rapid fire round,
Yes.
which means we're going to generate 3 random words and we'll have 5 minutes to come up with a game idea based on those 3 words. Isaac, are you ready with the timer?
I am.
Well, good, because I'm ready with the words. Here they are. They are. They're very silly. Superintendent, fragrant, monarch.
Okay. All
So
right.
superintendent makes me think of a school, obviously, like right off, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the only way that that can go. Is that word used for any other context?
Well, because there's like superintendents of buildings and like
Oh, is there
superintendent.
really? I
Yeah.
always have only heard it in relation to schools.
Well, anyway, we'll just stick with school. My first thought was like, oh, it's like a simulator to see how hard it is to like do anything in a school. That could be fun.
Oh, Abbott Elementary, the video game.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
But then that ignores Fragrant and Monarch. So we've got a lot more to work with here.
Okay. So depending on how loosey goosey we get, we say superintendent. We basically
Super Nintendent is what you just said.
Super Nintendo, you know,
Well,
but
it's like,
superintendent,
oh my god,
superintendent,
that's so good.
superintendent. We abstract to just mean school, and we
Okay,
don't
but I
we
do
don't.
need the game to be named Super Nintendent, and it's a Nintendo game.
Okay, all right,
I
superintendent,
really
the
need that.
Nintendo game. So it's just school,
Yeah.
fragrance, and monarch. I don't know fragrance yet, but I'm thinking either you are like a school for princes and
Okay.
princesses,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know what the or was. It has escaped me, but let's just say
And
it's a school for princes and princesses.
yes, a school for royals, fragrant. So I was thinking it could be perfume school, but maybe it's a school for royals perfume class. So you have to learn how to make your own perfume.
Okay, wait, we want to,
Like
well,
potions, maybe. I don't know.
okay. Uh, maybe they're the royals of the perfume kingdom, or no. So I like the idea of it being a school for royals. There maybe is a perfume class, or like the perfume is like somehow integrated into the setting, but not necessarily the gameplay. Because I feel like that puts us into a hyper specific niche. If we are making
Well,
perfume,
okay, so
then
if
that
it
limits what the gameplay is.
okay, so then what if the fragrant is more about like since you're a school for royals, it's like constantly targeted. And so like there's like things that is poison and if you smell it, then like I don't know, I picture you get like reset like in Animal Crossing when you get stung by something, but it could be anything else. But like so like you have to avoid like certain things or like if you walk into like there's like different colored clouds of things and like it could be an attack maybe.
Okay. All right. So, all right. What are we envisioning for the actual gameplay? So there's some level of poison element that you have to somehow be aware of. It's a school, you're learning. So, uh like I'm thinking of the Princess Maker series, which is an old game, but basically like you wake up and you are the parent of like a up and coming princess, and then you train the princess to be a good royal. So like you pick what she's going to do every day. So in this context, it would be like you pick which classes you go to. Each class like bumps up stats in different ways, and like maybe has a
Yeah.
mini game associated with it.
And
So
then I
like,
was thinking, yeah, like that sounds good. And then as you like bump up, you can like help. You can like be more of a help defeating the threat. So like the hallways as you go to class are going to be like, there's a stink bomb.
oh,
There's an
like little
attacking
events that
force.
you
Yeah,
can solve, and like there's like a dice roll of your skill behind the scenes. So if
yeah.
you've got like level 4 bomb diffusing skill, you can diffuse the stink bomb without it going off.
I
But
mean, it's a little bit. What I'm describing is a little bit Lego Harry Potter. Um,
oh,
it's a
that
little inspired
okay.
by Lego Harry Potter because you do attend classes in that. You learn new spells in the class, and then you use those spells to like defeat challenges outside of class. But
Okay.
I think that's a good mechanic. I think we should usurp it.
All right. Boom. So we have 10 seconds left. Our name is Superintendent. We are a game about collecting, growing skills in school, and 2 seconds left. That's done. Boom. It's
Woo,
0.
time. I did
Time.
also realize I looked up Kirby and Dreamland, the new one. It's not coming out till February 24th.
That's so long from now. How are
Yeah,
we going to survive
I
that?
don't know. Play
What are we supposed
Kirby,
to do?
other
Play
Kirby
other
games.
Kirby games?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, are you ready for our next 3
I
words?
am. I am.
All right. This is interesting because we have familiar,
Okay.
we have permanent,
Okay.
and we also have ambiguity, which seems to be slightly on the opposite side of the other 2 words. So let's see how that goes.
Familiar, permanent, and ambiguity.
Now, I do think it'd be fun to take familiar. I do think it'd be fun to take familiar and make it like a pet familiar versus like this is familiar to me. Are those spelled
Oh, because
differently?
I was immediately thinking of like a memory, like card
Oh,
matching
okay.
game,
Okay.
is where my brain was going.
Okay.
Partially because I already said the familiar idea, giving the example of designing a game.
Oh, yeah. See, you can't use up the random.
But I mean, maybe we do both methods. Maybe we
Mhm.
do familiars that are familiar to you.
Well, I would hope
Maybe
so.
maybe there's a card matching like memory game
I guess, yeah,
and
permanent
it's
is good for a card matching game. But what about ambiguity? How are we going to work that in?
ambiguity.
That's a hard one for a video game, I feel. It's like,
So
here's the gameplay,
I'm
but it's
trying to
ambiguous.
think I'm trying to think of a way to combine card matching. So like, you flip 2 cards. If they match, you keep them flipped.
Right.
If you don't match them, you flip them both over again, and then you pick 2 new cards. And now I know where the matches are when you do it eventually.
Right.
And I'm trying to combine that with Minesweeper
Okay.
for the ambiguity. So like,
Oh,
there's
okay.
like null cards
No, I've
or
got this.
like
I got
bomb
this.
cards or
So
something.
you play as a witch's familiar, and you're sent to
Okay.
different places to gather, like you said, like in the earlier game, I guess, ingredients or something, right?
Okay.
Resources. But like when you get to that place, it's like, okay, there's like, in order to collect them, you have to match them, and
Yes.
but the places are different. So like it's a field, and there's like a grid of holes, and you have to dig into the holes. So it just like makes it a little more fun, and then you might, like you said, like hit a mine or hit like something that like you have to reset the whole level. It could be like
Mhm.
opening boxes and like a storage, but like obviously they're a grid, so it's a little bit more fun, or like you spiced up the flipping cards game, and it has
Yeah.
a little. But I like that. I think we nailed it. I think that's the game.
Okay. All right. So all right. Just to recap the gameplay. So your witch is familiar. You go to different zones. Different zones are like different levels with maybe different kinds of hazards,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to figure out which areas are hazards and avoid them because there's some downside to those hazards, while also like revealing matches.
Yeah,
So
and
you
then
can't just blindly flip every single card and eventually be like, "Oh, look, I've done it." Because if you flip the bad cards too many times, you like are sent back to base as if you got stung by a scorpion in
yeah.
Animal Crossing and you haven't collected any resources or something. Okay, so that's the gameplay. The name.
Mm-hmm. Collecting pet. Collecting pet. The name is
Collecting pet?
Magic the Gathering.
No, that was bold. We're doing it. It's card based. It's card based. It has magical creatures. You're gathering
Can
ingredients.
we
It's
wait?
perfect.
Can it be
Magic the Gathering.
Wait, no, magic, comma a gathering.
Magic, comma a gathering, and then very small font under it. Game.
Yeah.
Magic a gathering game. Boom. I'm calling it time with a minute left.
Beautiful.
Magic, comma a gathering game.
That's what it is. All right, are you ready for our final 3 words?
I'm hyped up on that one. I am perfect
You're not ready
for that.
All right. Oh,
No,
you're
yeah,
extra ready.
yeah.
Okay,
I'm extra ready. I'm ready to come out of the stable.
good.
Running.
Rifle,
Rifle?
brown,
Bra-
forward.
Okay,
Big
so
sigh.
like there's like a gun called like the Browning rifle,
Okay.
and I think it was used in World War One. And in World War One, you charged forward from the trenches,
Okay.
shooting your rifle.
Uh-huh.
So That's what comes to my mind immediately. Let's see what you've got, because I've just made a generic first-person shooter.
Yeah. Okay, well, what if it wasn't a first-person shooter? What if it was like tabletop historical war games, but a video game?
Okay, all right. I love when this happens. I love incorporating my tabletop.
But what if
Ugh.
also it was like kind of goofy, like a la Goose Game? Like this could be in the silly block where like I don't know, I don't know how the gameplay would make it goofy, but how like I'm picturing you just like have like this mass of like people who are your soldiers who kind of like move silly somehow. Help me out here. But
So this game
do
does
you
already exist. It's called Totally Accurate Battle Simulator,
damn it.
and it's got lots of ragdoll physics, and you can have like T-Rexes fighting World War One
See, that's
soldiers and
exactly what
stuff.
I wanted, and now it's already taken.
So we're making Totally Accurate Battle Simulator 2, but we're not changing anything about it.
No. Okay, what if we came up with a completely different game? So it's brown rifle forward. So maybe brown is the color of a horse, and the horse can only go forward. It can't go side to side even.
Okay.
And you need to rifle through the town paperwork on your horseback. I don't know.
Wait. Okay. Wait. All right. So let's say we do that. So you are riding the horse through
The brown horse.
the brown horse through the town, and
You can't go backwards.
okay. So it is a silly like ragdoll style game. It's you like lean down off your horse while staying on the horseback while it's
good.
constantly
Yes.
moving forward. You like
Maybe you're
pick
like
up things,
Yeah, I
and
was
then
gonna
you're like
say
rifling through and like
maybe it's like you
throwing
have
papers.
to you have to like rifle through things to find certain objects. So again, like Goose Game, like there's some kind of list. Like I have to find like certain paperwork or objects. So you have to rifle, but you have to stay on your horse. So you're like leaning off. This is good. We did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then like if your horse runs into something while you're rifling through stuff, like it might make you throw everything out of your hands, and then you have to figure out a way to gather it. So you have to keep looking up from the stuff you're rifling through.
Yeah. No, this is good. All right. We are gonna call it.
And now this is a piece. I want to be clear about the gameplay. This is a PC game where your mouse. So you each button represents like a different hand, and while you're holding down the hand, that's how you move it.
Okay.
So right button moves your right hand, and then you use that to like grab a paper and then toss it.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay. So it can be called horse. A horse. Horse is a horse.
A horse is a horse. No. We need to
horse
fit.
famous.
Horse auditor. Because you're auditing the town.
Is that why we didn't say why.
That's why you're collecting the paperwork and rifling through it.
Okay, I don't know if I would ever play a game called Horse Auditor, because that sounds like I'm auditing a horse. Not I'm riding a horse while auditing. Auditor.
Okay, maybe the game is called Riding a Horse While Auditing.
Good,
Simulator.
yeah, go literal. I like that.
Yeah.
Simulator, yeah. Have you ever wanted to simulate riding a horse while auditing simulator time?
Time. All right, boom. 35 seconds left.
Perfect.
Riding a horse while auditing simulator.
Well, hey, guess what? That's our show. So thanks for listening.
We made it through.
We made it. Thank you for listening. If you want to find us on social media, you can follow us on social media. Wow. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Make That Game Pod. We are on YouTube at Make That Game. You can search our handle now. We have one of those.
We have it like a URL. It's youtube.com/at Make That Game, if I remember right.
/at? Really?
Yes.
Is that how that works? Okay. That's weird.
The handle is an at. Yeah. So it's at Make That Game.
I don't think I've ever put an at symbol in a URL before. So
apparently it's allowed. And yeah, if you just do Make That Game without the at symbol, nothing happens.
Okay, so make sure you add the at symbol. Live large, try new things. So you can find us there. Please subscribe. We would love that. Even if you don't watch us on YouTube, it helps a ton. And then also, if you want to leave us a review on iTunes, that helps a ton. You can always email us, makethatgamepodcast@gmail.com with any game ideas and things you want to tell us. We'd love to hear it. And, if you heard a game today that you think should exist in this wide world, we encourage you to get out there and make that
game.